Check, check. We're going live. We're going live. I'm Glenn, City Valley Fishing Fuel Team, COAF Fuel Team on YouTube. And this time, we're talking about the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing from the Real Cast Fishing podcast series. And yours truly is going to go and just go through the normal format where we talk about 5 fishing tips from the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing right here. And from there, we'll also kind of shift to other things, but bottom line, I read through it, and then if you have any questions, comments, certainly call them out, as well as also call out anything that kind of stands out in particular. All right, so we'll start out with tips 1, 2, 1. When I'm reading and approaching a run in a river, I like to use a 5-step approach. Say there's a rock creating the sun run against a bank, a current seam sweeps outside the run, and an eddy forms inside toward the bank. How do you plan to cast? If you're like most anglers, like to catch 2 or 3 fish out of this run. So step 1 is to cast to the tail out of the seam. And for those that are listening on the podcast, it's showing a picture or diagram of several fish located ahead of a rock or up current from a rock, several fish down current from the rock. Okay. If you're like most anglers, you'd like to catch 2 or 3 fish out of this run. So step 1 is to cast to the tail out of the seam. You'll find the biggest fish here. Be cautious and deliberate. Shallow, slower water tends to make fish, especially larger, older fish, more skittish and selective. Step 2 and 3 are cast following the seam upstream toward the rock. Odds are the biggest fish in the run somewhere in this area if he isn't at the tail out. Another place the big boy might be is the eddy, likely feeding against the current facing downstream. That's my step 4 cast into the eddy, paying out line back toward the rock as the eddy sucks it upstream. Step 5 is a well-placed cast or 2 in the cushion in front of the rock. Always fish the front of the rock and the front of the run. Okay, so let's go back to that diagram. So it's showing 5 locations. The first fish up current is ahead of a rock. Then there's 2 that are kind of parallel, and then there's 1 more further back, and then 1 more way back, and they call the tail out. And the description that step 1 was talking about was the first cast to this lagging, trailing trout that's at the tail out. And it says to work the seam and then also come up closer to this area that's right behind the rock where you can see the seams coming back and forth behind the rock. And then finally the 5th one would be casting to that one that's just forward of the rock. So it's sort of like trying to target the last fish so you don't scare the first or the next fish and the next and the next. Sort of like, well, you don't want to spook those that are leading. So you start with the tail end guy. All right, I like it. Makes sense. Common sense. Well, maybe trout sense. All right. 1, 2, 1, or correction, 1, 2, 2. The reverse eddy. True or false? Trout always face upstream in rivers. The answer, false. Okay. I didn't know that. I mean, I always thought they did, but okay, let's read this. Trout usually face up current in rivers, though not always, and as currents inevitably mix and swirl under myriad influences that shape water directions, banks, rocks, timber, and so on, it's common to find trout facing downstream, feeding into that current. The classic example of this is the river eddy. Water washes around a giant rock or a gravel bar with such force that it creates a vortex where the water is spun around in reverse. These eddies are often prime spots for holding big trout, especially when mayflies, midges, and caddis are present, either nymphs or adults. When reading water and assessing a run, always look for an eddy first. You know that main seam is there and you know how to fish that, but spend a few minutes before the first cast by taking a long, hard look for an eddy. Okay. The first telltale is watching the pattern of bubbles, twigs, leaves, and other flotsam on the surface. Insects on the surface are, of course, the best sign of all. If you see the patterns of a reverse eddy in place, assume there are fish in it, and the reason those fish would be there is to eat. Okay, interesting. Best cast to cover an eddy is a snake cast, where you leave slack at the end of your line and gently feed that slack into your eddy as your flies drift upstream. It's an extremely technical maneuver, but it can be very exciting, as you'll see and feel strikes much more effectively in the relatively calm of the eddy. Okay, well, hey, first-hand experience there about fish failing or facing upstream versus downstream. I do recall when I was fishing a particular eddy over there at the Lower Mountain Fork Beaver Bend State Park, Oklahoma. It was a little vortex-like deal, and the trout were facing actually downstream because of the vortex or that water circulation, and you could see those twigs and bubble lines and all that other stuff, food coming right into them going upstream instead of downstream because of that little swirl. So hey, I like that. We'll keep that one in our back pocket. That true or false, fish don't always face downstream. All right, the cut bank. Let's take a look at the cut bank. All right, there is no place a big cutthroat or brown likes to hang out more than an undercut bank, where the high water currents of the river have scoured out a cave. Okay. To hide in, rainbows tend to prefer riffles and seams, although they too will inhabit cuts if there is enough current. When you find a horseshoe bend on the trout stream, which creates a deep, dark cut bank, you can almost bet there will be a big drowned trout living inside, and always be on the lookout of those cut banks. Once you've found your target, the trick becomes getting a fly to float into the strike zone. The overhang on a cut bank can often make dropping a shot directly in prime water impossible. You can try to side armor cast or skip a hopper into the cut, but that's sometimes too splashy to produce good results. For me, the best approach for fishing the cut bank is an upstream at an angle. I shoot the cast at tight to the bank as possible, and then feed slack line and hope the current sucks the fly under the cut. Make your first cast count. When fishing cut banks, your first presentation will likely be the one that gets the hit. This isn't the place to experiment or mess around. Okay. And that's interesting because I never thought of that. I've been one of those ones where I'm trying to fish for trout that are under a cut bank, and I'm casting, side casting, flipping casting, whatever casting, trying to get it under that undercut. But I never thought about just going at an angle, head up downstream, and cast and kind of feed your line, that fly, to go under the undercut. Wow. Wow, I've read this book many times, Little Red Book of Fly Fishing, and I just caught on this one. So put that in your back pocket. I'm going to use this one next time I'm working a cut bank for some trout. I'm going to stand upstream at an angle. I'll cast and I'll pay out line and let that fly go under the undercut. Good stuff. Hey, it's the reason why I keep one of these Little Red Book of Fly Fishing books handy. All right, let's go on to the next one. 124. So we're going through 121, 121 to 125. This is 124 now. Let's see what this one says out of the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. Low water, high water. It's always easy to read rivers during periods of low water. Natural features are more prominent. Deep pools are more obvious and important, and currents are clearly defined. It's totally different when the water comes up. The currents are jumbled and more forceful, with dramatic breaks. Everything is deeper than normal, but high water, for all its challenges, does give the angler a few hints. Heavy current usually pushes trout in one of two directions, to the bank or to the bottom, where they can find some hydrodynamic advantages that keep them sheltered. When reading heavy water, key on color changes more than you would in other situations. Colors tell you where submerged structure and drop-offs are located. Okay, I like this one also. Especially this piece right here, where it's talking about in high water, one of two directions, either going to the bank or deeper. And, you know, past experience fishing high water on the Blue River up in Oklahoma when we've got a lot of rains and whatnot. And I do remember seeing that off-color variations in the water. And additionally, I do remember that it was either fishing deeper or closer to the bank to hook up with these trout. So, yeah, good one. Low water, high water. Keeping that in your back pocket. Work that one of two directions, either to the bank or deeper. All right, good stuff. A lot of good stuff out of the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. Okay, so we went through 121. We're up to 125 now, and at this point, we'll stop at 125, and then we'll shift open to any Q&A, any open items to talk about, and maybe even give you some updates. And here, let me do a little howdy in the chat to just let folks know that hey, we're monitoring the chat as well. All right. All right. 125. Make big water small. Most of us started fly fishing on small streams. They're easy to wade and easy to read. You have that one log sticking out in the current, scouring the river bottom, and you can guess there's a good chance that Mr. Big Brown Trout might be hanging around it. But what do you do when you get on a big, wide river like the Madison, the Bighorn, the South Fork of the Snake, the Green, the Colorado, or the Delaware? Among the guides I've fished with on these rivers, from Patty Riley in Wyoming to Bob Lamb in Idaho to Joe DeMalderis in New York, they all say that the key to reading them is to make big water small. Interesting. By that they mean taking a river that's 50 yards wide, mentally dividing into a 5-10 yard wide sections. If you're wading upstream, start with the 10-yard section that's closest to the bank. Look for fish first. Now look for changes in structure, a rock, a log, a drop-off. Also look for changes in the current. Is there a spot where fast water meets slow water? Look for a depression in the bottom. If you found the changes, make your cast, 10 casts, covering all the hot spots on your radar. Nothing happened? Nothing happened? Move out from the bank to the next 10-yard wide section and look for the same things: current breaks, structure, drop-offs, and cover them with solid casts. Nothing happened? Move toward the middle and repeat the process. Do this until you can't wade any deeper. If you're wading big rivers, it usually is too deep to work all the way across, and until you feel you've made enough casts. Next, wade upstream and start the process over. Make big water small in your mind. Divide and conquer, always working from the bank outward. Okay, that's a good one. I like that one. Make big water small. Kind of the same thing like when you're fishing a big lake or a big pond. Cut it up in sections and focus on that one section. And as it says, look for structure, look for changes in depth, look for some water activity or surface activity. So I like this. Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. I know it's talking about catching trout. I know it's fly fishing. But some of these tips, they apply to other things, like just normal fishing in general. So like in this last example, tip 125, make big water small, right here. I think I could do the same thing working a pond. So I'm fishing a pond, and I just kind of cut it up in sections and just think about it. This section, this bank has a tree, has a submerged log, or has a stick up. I see an undercut bank. So I'm going to work that area. Once I finish working that area, I get what I get, or I don't get anything, I'll move on to the next and kind of do the same thing and just reassess everything. Because if you take a look at a whole large area, you might tend to just get overwhelmed and think about it too much. And next thing you know, you've got 100 different things in your head. And that big water is just big water, and you're not analyzing where the fish may be lurking. So, hey, I like it. All right. So that takes us to the end of this section, 121 to 125. At this point, I'll just open it up for any question answers. If anyone have any general fishing questions, I'm here to discuss, talk, etc. Additionally, I just want to give some updates. And I think the easiest way to give you some updates is I also manage a blog website where I keep things, and I'm just going to go through the most recent posts, and maybe that might generate some interest there, maybe some questions that y'all may have. Okay, so let me go ahead and start out with the whole, let's go way down over here, because it's been a while since I last posted a Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. Oh, wow. Been a while. Let's go to older post. All right, bear with me. Okay. All right, let's hit the button. I'm just cycling through here now. Okay, I'm just cycling through here. We got a little Yeah, we got technical difficulties, it sounds like. All right. Okay, let's try this out. We'll start out with the live bait BFS combo round 1. Okay, so in this particular instance, yours truly was out there fishing. And what I was doing was trying out the ultralight bait caster. And what I did was I took a Shimano Corrado BFS XG using the Shakespeare ultralight rod. It's a 7-foot rod. And what I wanted to do was just see if I could, in fact, catch a fish or two using this live bait combo. All right, so I'm showing you here where number one, I needed to catch some bait first. So I went with the fly rod, hit the local pond or feeder creek, and was able to catch a bunch of these little bluegill and sunfish. And then once I finished catching those, went ahead and put them in a little bait bucket that I maintain, or that I keep, and a little bubbler in there. And I was able to use it to go fishing later. And let me go ahead and just jump ahead real quick. Okay. And you can see where I'm just catching a few here. All right. And here's now where I'm at the particular location where I'm fishing with these live bait. And in this case, it's the bluegill and sunfish I caught earlier that morning. And I tried different things where I put the hook initially on through the mouth, then later on I switched it and put it on the dorsal fin, and then later on I went ahead and hooked it onto the anal fin, and that seemed to work, more of a tail hook. And what that allowed it to do was the fish was able to kind of move forward away from me, and I could just kind of slowly drag them back. And what was cool was, even though I had to cut the live stream short because we didn't get anything, I end up getting this guy using that live bait or using live bluegill. So that was good. All right, let's go switch it up here. And the next thing is open up some fishing question and answer forum, where I was just going through some particular micro lures that I like. And when I say micro lures, it's the inline spinners, these mini crankbaits or micro crankbaits. Those worked out really well. And additionally, I did end up hooking up really well with a Yuzuri snap bean. Let me go and switch it up again. All right, it was the Yuzuri snap bean. Let's see if I can find it here. Okay, no, it's not here. All right, let me go back one. Okay, and when I found that Yuzuri snap bean, it was a nice size catfish. I mean, it really threw me the size of this thing, especially when I was using just 2-pound test line. I'm just kind of flipping through here to see if I can get to it real quick. Okay, coming up on it, I believe. Oh no. Oh no. I don't see it. Shoot. Okay, let me switch down. Damselfly, ultralight bait casting, the auto podcast, pan fishing. Okay, yeah, we went up to Lake Thunderbird, caught a bunch of different fish and whatnot. But let me see if I can switch it really quick to that particular fish that I caught. All right. And what I'm doing is I'm going back to my YouTube Shorts feed, and I'm looking for a particular video of interest. And in this case, I think you'd like to see it. All right, bear with me. Okay. All right, it's coming up. All right. Get to the content page. Content. Okay. All right. Almost got it. Ooh. Okay, right here. And what's cool about this one was I didn't think I could catch this guy in this particular pond, but I ended up doing pretty good. Okay, let me pause it real quick. Okay. All right. Okay, here it is. All right. Let me go ahead and turn it up. Okay. Let me see something real quick. All right, so I'm using the Yuzuri snap bean, 2 pound test line. Oh yeah. And I was surprised how much the line was able to hold. It was a little 2 pound test line, and that light feather kingfisher. Okay, so that's all I had on the main portion of the live stream. But now I'm just kind of opened up any questions that y'all may have. And for those that are just joining, we finished up the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing tips 120. Finish tips 121 to 125. All right. Okay, I guess it's a quiet day, but don't worry. I go ahead and post this um, so that you guys can take a look at, or at least listen to, some of the fly fishing tips coming from the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. All right. The other thing is we did try doing the live stream out at the local pond, and unfortunately the phone overheated on us and had to shut down early. But unfortunately, I didn't catch anything. But hey, I'll be ready to go out there again, and hopefully we'll get another live stream going so that y'all can get a good idea of at least what's working for yours truly. And hey, I think this next round I think I will go back out with the flight feather king